Welcome to our IAEP online course on internal quality assurance in higher education, designing and developing an effective IQA system. This is Module 1 on the foundations of IQA, purposes, definitions and expectations. So what will you learn in this module? We will explain the higher education context that has led to the development of IQA and define the basic concepts and the various approaches connected to internal quality assessment. You will understand how strategic management and IQA are articulated in a higher education institution. You will evaluate key concepts and the applicability of models for IQA. You will understand the complexities related to the concept of quality culture and identify those factors that are supportive of it. And finally, you will make a critical assessment of your IQA system in terms of their underlying principles and values, strengths and weaknesses. Let us now move to part 1 of Module 1, what are quality and quality assurance. We will approach the context in higher education that has led to a worldwide development of quality assurance in higher education reform. We will discuss the complexity of the quality concept in higher education and define a number of concepts such as standards, criteria, indicators related to quality assurance. But first, we would like to pose a question for reflection. What are the current trends affecting higher education in your country? On our electronic platform, we have posted a video that provides you with inputs to this question. We would like to take you 5 minutes to watch this video. The first and most important trend is the worldwide increase in the student population. Worldwide, student numbers have increased from the year 1991 of something like 70 million students worldwide to a population of more than 200 million students worldwide in the year 2014. But the regions across the world have not been affected in the same manner. The most rapid increase has happened in the Asian region, where the GER, the gross enrollment ratio, that is the participation rate of young people in comparison with the age group population, has increased from 12 million to close to 40 million in the year 2014. Increases in student enrollment, together with changes, sometimes in the employment structure, have led to a diversification of the higher education provision in many higher education systems across the world. Indeed, there are new types of institutions, including e-learning and offshore provision, that have entered the higher education landscape. There are also new types of courses, including short-term vocational courses, which are more attuned to the needs of the labor market. And finally, there are also more educational opportunities outside universities. This has led to a rise of the social demand for higher education in many countries, particularly in those countries where there is an emerging middle class that can afford and that want to have access to higher education. Within a context of lack of public resources to fund this expansion, there has been an increased openness of governments to the privatization of higher education provision, and thus an increased marketization of the higher education systems. As a consequence, often quite dynamic, private providers have entered the higher education systems, which has led and raised issues related to supervision and quality control. Another major trend in higher education worldwide is the growing internationalization. Indeed, there is an increasing number of students studying abroad. Countries actively engage in attracting foreign students, but many students now depend on their own financial resources rather than scholarships for mobility. And countries are interested in increasing the share of foreign students that wish to study in their local higher education institutions. As a consequence, there's also an increased interest in comparing the performance of countries' education systems internationally. All these factors together, the expansion of higher education enrollments, the diversification of the higher education provision, including its privatization, and regional integration processes, change the way that both national authorities and the leadership of higher education institutions view the quality of higher education, of the higher education offer. And finally, global movements towards regional integration are increasingly affecting higher education policy in many regions worldwide. In Europe, there's the Bologna process as an example of higher education collaboration among higher education systems in the European region. 48 countries are working together on the creation of a higher education space in the European region. On the African continent, the East African Community has joined several countries to form a common higher education area that aims at harmonization of higher education and training systems and facilitates academic collaboration and mobility. Here are some questions for reflection. Take some time and stop to watch the video that we have posted on our course platform under the angle of Module 1. Take 5 minutes to reflect on the two following questions. How does your institution define educational quality? What tools are used to assess quality in your higher education institution? When we are trying to define quality of higher education, we can easily enter into lengthy debates. According to a foundational article produced by Harvey and Green in 1993, which is often cited, quality can mean different things to different people. First, quality can mean excellence, highest standards, or quality may mean perfection, that there is zero default in the product, or quality may mean fitness for purpose. Quality is what fits the objectives, what fits the purpose. Or quality may mean value for money, what provides value for a given amount of investment in higher education. Or finally, quality may mean transformation, continuous improvement. Quality, under this definition, is never a fixed concept, but it is something that is transformative. But what is important is that a higher education institution is striving for continuous improvement of its provision. And it is also important to recognize that quality in higher education is not static. It is contextual. It relates to historical, cultural, political, and economical context. That means that quality means different things in different contexts. It's also multidimensional and evolutionary. What is quality today may not be quality of tomorrow. And we have already related to the different definitions that we can, under which we can categorize different concepts of quality. And quality means different things to different stakeholders. For instance, for students, what matters most is the quality of teaching, the quality of their learning experience and their learning environment. And of course, what is very important to them is the opportunity that education provides them for entry in the labor market. For the teachers, the academics, the quality of the research environment is very important because their career depends on it. And they define typically quality of higher education related to the originality and productivity of research. And for professional bodies, for instance, medical councils and the like, the skills and the competences of graduates are the most important attributes of the quality of higher education. So given this complexity in the definition of quality of higher education, what do we do then? And this is typically what is happening in quality assurance. We need first to choose an approach to the definition of quality and then identify certain dimensions, which we call evaluation domains, and then finally define standards, criteria, and elements of proof to measure quality. A fundamental concept related to quality measurement are quality standards. Quality standards are norms, expectations, or specifications for good practices that provide the basis for the assurance of quality. But quality standards can also be used for comparative purposes. Standards are specified and usually measurable outcome indicators that allow us to compare quality across different higher education offers and across higher education institutions. In quality measurement, we also use the concept of criteria. Criteria are usually used to measure standards. They are specifications of the quality of inputs, processes, or outputs against which the provision and performance can be evaluated. And indicators allow us to measure criteria. So an indicator is something that points to, measures, or otherwise provides a summary overview of a specific concept. Indicators can be either qualitative or quantitative. They can be measures of many aspects of quality of an institution or a program. Indicators relate to criteria, and criteria themselves are specification of standards. And benchmarks finally provide a value for an indicator, typically a quantitative indicator, to allow us to make a statement on whether a specific level of performance is achieved or not. And sometimes we tend to talk about performance indicators. What's the difference between a performance indicator and a simple indicator? The difference is also quite simple. A performance indicator is an indicator that is used for evaluative purposes. A performance indicator can either help to evaluate the effectiveness or the efficiency of a higher education institution or its programs. They are thus indicators of effectiveness and indicators of efficiency. The notion of effectiveness is related to goal achievement. As a consequence, indicators of effectiveness tell us about whether a higher education institution achieves its goals. So related performance indicators would be the graduation rates of students, since higher education is about the provision of credentials in higher education, but also the employment rate of graduates. Higher education institutions are also expected to provide credentials that are leading to employment. But then there are also indicators of efficiency. Efficiency relates to the use of resources to achieve certain goals. Indicators of efficiency are, for instance, student-staff ratios, the utilization rate of lecture halls, and the average number of years to obtain a degree. Both indicators of effectiveness and indicators of efficiency are complementary indicators. Now let us look at an example on the utilization of these concepts, which describes how they are interlinked. For example, a standard could be: the content of a study program is periodically reviewed. The standard needs to be measured through a criteria, which could be the existence of a modality for the consultation with employers and professionals leading to change in the content coverage of an academic program. And then this criteria again needs to be measured through indicators. And the indicators could be available minutes of meetings with the professionals, number of corrective measures derived from exchange processes with professionals. Now let us look more precisely at the notion of standards. We have said that quality assurance systems are widely based in an agreed system of standards which provide the quality model against which the quality of a higher education institution or its programs are measured. They are both qualitative and quantitative standards. A qualitative standard was just mentioned. This would be the availability, for instance, of a review process of academic programs. But there may be also quantitative standards. For instance, in a library, there should be so many books per student, or there should be so many square meters for students in a higher education institution. When choosing an approach to quality assurance, higher education institutions can either choose a standard-based approach, either consisting of good practice standards or minimum standards, but also they can use a fitness for purpose approach. The fitness for purpose approach acknowledges that higher education institutions can have different purposes within a higher education system. But of course, there is also the fitness of the purpose itself. Not every purpose, obviously, would be acceptable. It should be a purpose that is in line with the mission of higher education institutions in a particular higher education system. Standards are typically expressed in evaluation domains, and every quality model consists of a series of evaluation domains, which are typically the integrity and the mission of the higher education institutions, related governance and management procedures, human resources available at the higher education institution, both academic and administrative staff, learning resources and infrastructure, financial management procedures and available resources, the existing student profile and support services, curricular aspects related to the higher education program, teaching and learning methods and student evaluation, research consultancy and extension, and internal quality assurance procedures. Standards are expressed under these evaluation domains, and as already mentioned, standards are measured through criteria and indicators.